Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to splice the region or the sound file into the different bits so that we have individual notes so that each region that we create is a separate note, and we can take those regions and move them around. So we'll go ahead and put our cursor at the end of, let's zoom in a little bit so we see that better. Yeah, there. So at the end of beat 2, between beat 2 and beat 3, and we press S, which is short for splice, and we'll go ahead and splice it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to select the region, the one that we just spliced, and then we right click on it and we go to item properties, and where it says take name we'll say C4. Okay, so this is just a C major scale, so that's pretty intuitive. That's not a problem there. Anyway, so then that's now labeled up here. Now if you can't see it, you might make sure that you're in the right place in the track. Sometimes if you lower the height, you might this bit, the name, the title might be hidden, might get hidden behind this. Okay, so then we go to the end of beat of the fourth beat of the first measure. Press S again, and then we go once again. We right click, item properties. We'll call this D4. And I think you see where this is going. I'll continue to do this for all the other ones. Splice. I won't do all of these. I'll just do up to G. F4. And splice. Okay, so we have basically the first 5. So we'll just get rid of this for now because we don't really need it. But so we have 5 individual notes that are basically aligned with the beat, which doesn't really matter because we're not trying to do something that's going along with some sort of drum beat or anything. So we don't really need to worry about it. I just thought it would be a good opportunity for us also to take a look at how the grid mode works, because it can be pretty helpful. Okay, excellent. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new track, and we do that by either double clicking on an empty space here, or by going to track and insert new track. Now we're going to use or also by using Command T, as you can see here, and we have a new track. So it's empty now, so it doesn't get a name because there's nothing loaded onto it, but we can give it a name. We'll call it melody. So I double click on the empty region there, the little box, and I call it melody. Or maybe my melody. Okay, and so this is now an opportunity to talk about these 2 buttons here. So these are in every single digital audio workstation you ever see, including mixers, or at least if they're big enough, you'll see these. These are mute button and solo button. And so what a mute button will do is it'll just mute this particular track. And that's very helpful when you're using multiple tracks, because let's say that I have sound here as well. If I play back, I'll hear both at the same time, which I may want to do, but might not want to do. So in this case, what we're doing is we're actually using the second track as well. The first track is sort of like a a database of notes that we just drag into where we put them. We could have actually we could take the time to save every individual bit of sound separately, put it in a folder, and then go here with the Media Explorer and drag them in here, but that just seems like a lot of work. And when you're editing tracks, for example, of you playing, it actually is very helpful to work this way, because you get to have your raw track up here, or your raw take. You get to see all the different components, and then you can move them around until you're happy with it. So basically that's why we use mute when we play back our new melody. And the solo, that's just basically solos that particular track. Now this doesn't seem to make much sense to have both of these features, but if you had many tracks, let's say 20, you would want to be able to mute one without muting all the other ones, or to solo one, thereby muting all the other ones in just one click. So that's what that is for. And we'll talk more about the other buttons later as they become useful to us. So then what your assignment is to take these bits basically rearranged to compose a melody, which could be a pre-existing melody if you want. It doesn't matter. Maybe a folk tune or something. It's not going to be anything fancy because rhythmically you're pretty bound by this kind of like half note motion. You could either even create a little space in between, maybe. Well, we'll see. So let's say that I want to create a simple melody, and I take my C. So what you want to do is you could drag that region and it'll jump over, but you probably don't want to do that because you might want to preserve it and then use that C another time. So what I'll do is I'll press Command and I'll just drag it down, which will make a copy of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make up a melody here. Oh no. Don't think about dragging. You have to be careful how far you go. It'll put it onto a new track. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to take that, put it onto here. And then you can also, so here's another command, you can also select a chunk, a bunch of regions, or just one, and press D, Command D actually, and that'll duplicate it right after. So if I do it to one, then I'll now have Command D, I have a duplicate, I have two C's, so C, D, E, C, C. And if I do, let's say all four, and I click Command, I select all four, click Command D, I now have all four. So now if I play this back, what you're here is two C's, two D's, two E's, and then a C and an F, and then a C and a G. Let's see how that sounds. Right, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the idea for this particular assignment is that we are only using this as kind of a draft, and then we add the other one. There's nothing preventing you from doing a two-voice piece or something, but this is just trying to keep things simple. And on your next project, you'll be able to do layering and all that. But for now, let's just keep it easy. So basically, yeah, you just rearrange the notes, come up with a tune, and see, notice what I did here. I could do it one of two ways. I can either mute this track, or I can solo this one. And either way, this one will be muted. So if I do this, I will only hear the bottom one. Right? And then you can, of course, do, I think you know where I'm going here. How original. And then you can still copy something. And now if you have a longer note, you could actually hold it and just have nothing after. Let's see. Duplicate it, but then I'm going to move it further. And now what that's going to create here is a little bit of a blank space, which normally isn't what you want in audio, because you'll hear a silence which sounds pretty artificial. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, so you'll hear this gap. I mean, this isn't going to be the most musical, creative kind of an exercise. It's just basically an opportunity for you to mess around with with some of the things you're learning. There are ways in which you can fake this and maybe you cut some of the sustain part of this and just kind of paste it onto here. But you don't need to worry about it. That's what I'm interested in, just taking that and making a short, let's say a 12 bar tune composed using these basic values, and it's up to you to see what you want to do with it. Now you could also change the speed if you wanted to by going here, and you could say 120, and what you'll see happens is it'll basically make the sound faster. Now it'll transpose it, it'll make them shorter, but it would actually keep the same pitch. But what you'll also see starts to happen, the more you change it, the more it doesn't sound quite right. Let's see if this still sounds okay. Right. And that's because this is a sound file that um, it's not the same as with MIDI when you change the tempo. But with audio, you're basically adding artifacts every time you do that. So you can do that if you want to, but I would say stay pretty conservative with it. Let's say if the original is at 80, that's the tempo that I recorded it at. You could do maybe a little bit faster, a little bit slower if you really want to. Or you can just leave it at 80 and that's totally fine. Okay, now the next thing and the last thing I want to talk about is how do you export this into a sound file? Because this is not a sound file right now. Where what Reaper's doing is it's just pointing to this original file and it's saying, okay, I'm taking the beginning of this, I'm taking the beginning of that, and so on and so forth. But to share this with someone, you actually have to render it. And so to do that is you go to File. What I would recommend doing is going up to the really gray area up here where the timeline is, clicking down and just holding down and selecting all the way from the beginning to the end so that you make sure that it's only rendering this bit. Although Reaper's pretty good about that. And then you go to File, you go to Render, and you basically choose a place for it, and you can call this, my melody. And then you could just put it wherever. Let's say I put it on my desktop, and I say Render. And basically here, this is where you'll choose the type of file. You can only do, what we'll need is either a WAV file or an AIFF file. To use MP3, you have to download an encoder, which I don't even have, but there's other programs that you can use for that. That's not a problem. But WAV file or AIFF file are going to be much higher quality. Anyway, so you're rendering a file. And then what happened now is it created a new sound file, a completely new sound file. And you can see that if you go here, and we import it. Well, if I go here through my Media Explorer, I should be able to find it. There's my melody. There it is. So there's my new melody. So if I solo that, I now have a new sound file. Okay, so basically this is the idea. Okay,